My sister walked into my restaurant like she owned the place, demanding the VIP table, claiming she knew the owner. She didn't. Because the owner was me. And by the end of the night, after all the insults, the lies, and the way she dragged my name through the mud, she was the one trembling mascara running down her cheeks, signing a $4,000 bill I handed her myself. I never thought I'd watch my own sister break like that, but I also never thought she'd look me in the eye and ask if my life was meaningless, just because I still choose to serve in the restaurant I built from the ground up. So here's what really happened the night family pride and truth collided under the glow of my restaurant's lights. Before I share my story, I want to know you are here with me. Just say listening in the comments, or let me know where you're watching from. Sometimes even the smallest connection makes a heavy story feel heard. Thank you. And now, here's my story. And if you're new here, it would mean the world if you hit subscribe. Stories like mine aren't easy to tell, but knowing someone out there is listening makes it a little less heavy. My name is Thane Merrick, and this is the night my own sister learned exactly who the owner really was. Before the night my sister demanded a VIP table in my own restaurant, I spent most evenings in a cramped little office behind the kitchen walls covered with remodeled blueprints, spreadsheets taped beside old newspaper clippings praising American Sons. There was an empty patch of wall above my desk back then, still waiting for the framed $4,000 bill that would come later. On that night, all I had in front of me was a glowing screen full of year-end numbers and a question I couldn't shake. Was I strong enough to carry 3 generations of this family's work on my shoulders? To understand how I got here, you'd have to go back to the 1970s when my grandfather Luca stepped off a bus into a dusty working-class Austin that barely resembles the city today. He rented a narrow brick storefront, painted Luca's Trattoria across a crooked wooden sign, and squeezed 5 tables inside. Family photos still hang in our hallway, my grandfather behind the counter, my grandmother Rosa kneading dough. In one photo, a man at the back table laughs mid-bite. Decades later, he'd become one of my most loyal VIPs, reminding me that the past never really leaves a place like ours. When Luca grew older, my parents Mark and Elena took over. They renamed the place American Sons, expanded the dining room, added a second floor, and managed to land a small feature in a local magazine. My childhood was shaped by the sounds of a busy kitchen and the heat of the pizza oven. I learned to sweep floors at 12 and stack plates without dropping them by 13. One night I overheard my parents talking over the stove. My dad said, "Thane's the one with the head for business. He'll run this place." My mom answered, "And Sloan. She's our kid too." I pretended not to hear, but a seed got planted, one that would sprout years later. As a teen, all I wanted was to escape the restaurant. I went to college, studied business, and took an internship at a lifeless office where no one knew or cared who I was. One afternoon, my mom called to brag about how customers loved Sloan, how photogenic she was, how perfect for the front of the house. I smiled through the phone, but something in me tightened. Then the restaurant started struggling. Costs went up, foot traffic went down, and my parents hinted at retirement. They asked if I'd come home. I stared at the corporate job offer on my desk, then at the worn business card my dad had slipped into my wallet months before. The next week I signed my name on a large bank loan, my palms sweating through the pen. I remodeled the entire place, new kitchen, new logo, new VIP section, new marketing. My parents sold me 95% of the business and kept 5 as their retirement cushion. American Sons became mine to save or destroy. When we reopened, the dining room stayed painfully empty. Every night I stood under warm lights and imagined the floor collapsing under the weight of my debt. Then one random YouTuber filmed a review. Overnight, everything changed. Bookings soared, the reviews turned glowing, and one night the restaurant was so packed I had to retreat into my office to breathe. We'd made it. Even after success, I stayed on the floor running food busing tables because serving is the only way I understand how my restaurant lives. I never felt ashamed of it. Not once. Not until the night my sister looked me in the eyes and asked if my life was meaningless because I still chose to serve. Most nights after close, when the kitchen quiets down, I scroll through my phone. That's where I see my sister, more than anywhere else, a glowing screen version of her standing under rooftop lights, cocktails and hand camera ready at all times. One night I opened Instagram and saw her caption, Wish this place understood VIP the way my brother's restaurant does. I stared at it longer than I should have. Sloane has always been magnetic, pretty quick, naturally charming. As kids, I scrubbed dishes while she bounced around greeting guests, earning compliments and free desserts from regulars. Our parents used to joke, Thane is the backbone, Sloane is the face. I used to laugh. Later, it stopped being funny. When she started making lifestyle content, the restaurant became her backdrop. One especially busy night, she marched in with friends, a ring light and a camera guy. She went live instantly. In her stream, a difficult regular ended up in the frame mid-complaint, making us look like we were ignoring him. The clip went semi-viral for the wrong reasons. Our ratings dipped. I confronted her after closing, asking her to edit or remove it. She refused. It's my content, Thane. People want real. We fought, and our parents stayed silent, too afraid to discourage her momentum. Weeks later, at a rare family dinner, my parents gushed about her channel. My dad turned to me and said, "You need to learn to use her influence." At that table, with the cost of the remodel looming over me, I realized they saw Sloane's spotlight as an asset and my 16-hour days as an obligation. After that, I pulled away. We texted less. She drifted deeper into influencer life events, sponsored drinks partnerships. Sometimes she tagged other restaurants with captions like, "Here you don't have to be the owner's kid to feel VIP," and her followers adored it. Each time I saw something like that, another hairline crack formed between us. Years before, our mother once said casually, "This restaurant is home. Anytime you two want to bring friends, just come." Sloane heard free access for life. I heard don't take advantage. That difference sat quietly between us for years, waiting for the right moment to explode. The night I saw her rooftop video, my phone buzzed again, this time a text from her. She asked our Christmas hours, then added, "Save me a pretty table that night, boss." I almost replied that we were fully booked and she needed a reservation like anyone else. Instead, I locked my phone, telling myself I'd answer tomorrow. That small silence, the one I didn't think twice about, became the first domino in everything that followed. Because on Christmas week, when she pushed through the doors of Merrick & Sons with 5 friends behind her chin, high camera ready, she walked in expecting a VIP table with her name on it. And she walked in believing, truly believing, that the owner was someone else entirely. Christmas in Austin never looks like the movies, but that night the city tried its best. The air was cold enough to sting when you stepped outside streets strung with lights, tourists shuffling past buskers playing off-key carols. From the sidewalk, Merrick & Sons glowed like a little glass box, warm light clinking silverware, the low roar of people talking over one another. It looked like everything I'd worked for had finally settled into place. Inside the tiny changing room, I stood in front of the mirror, knotting my tie, smoothing my jacket, reminding myself I wasn't just the owner tonight. I was the floor manager, the guy who had to keep all of this moving without showing how worried he was about the loan payment coming due in a few weeks. Out on the floor, the iPad at the host stand showed a wall of names. Every regular table was booked, most since July. A law firm had taken over the back section for their Christmas party. A wealthy local family was throwing an 80th birthday for their grandmother. Near the fireplace, a young couple had reserved a corner for their engagement celebration, complete with champagne tower and discreet photographer. Earlier that afternoon, my PR manager had emailed casual but excited word was an NFL player vacationing in Austin might drop by. "Can you keep one VIP table free, just in case," she wrote. I stared at the screen for a long minute, weighing an empty table against a full house. In the end, I tapped back yes. A place like ours lives or dies on reputation. Being ready for people with that kind of visibility mattered, even if it meant leaving money on the table on our biggest night. Of course, the universe didn't reward that choice with an easy shift. An hour before service, one of my bartenders texted that he'd tested positive for the flu and couldn't make it. I reshuffled the schedule, pulled a reliable server behind the bar, and promised myself I'd support him as much as I could from the floor. 2 new hires were still blinking like deer in headlights, misreading table numbers and sending plates to the wrong side of the room. Deliveries had been delayed all week, so the kitchen was running a tighter menu than usual, substituting ingredients on the fly. In the middle of that mess, my phone buzzed with an email alert from the bank reminding me of the upcoming installment on my loan. I opened it, Saw the number, felt my chest tighten, and swiped it away. Tonight had to run clean. No mistakes big enough to ripple into reviews or refunds. I walked the room once more, eventually making my way upstairs to the VIP area. That section is tucked behind a half wall, a little elevated stage of its own. The table we were holding sat by the largest window in the building, looking down at the street. Leather chairs, white linens, polished silver that caught the chandelier light just right. The menus up here are different, heavier paper, different dishes, no prices listed, only descriptions. It's a trick every high-end restaurant knows. People order more freely when numbers aren't staring them in the face. I reminded the staff that this section, unlike the rest of the dining room, was covered by high-quality cameras and microphones. A few years back, we'd had a drunk guest get violent and try to sue us. The recordings had saved us in court. Now, everything that happened at that table lived on a hard drive just in case. It was protection for us and for anyone who sat there. I didn't know yet that it would end up protecting me from my own family. As the first wave of guests arrived, a group of walk-ins hovered near the door, insisting we find something for them, even after the host politely explained we were fully booked. I stepped in, apologized, and turned them away. On my way back to the pass, a regular tugged at my sleeve, eyes crinkling. "You look more wound up than usual, kid," he said. Big night, I laughed it off, blamed the holidays, but in the back of my mind a different worry flickered, the unanswered text from my sister about Christmas. When I checked the reservations again, her name wasn't there. I told myself she'd gone somewhere more on brand for Instagram, a rooftop with neon signs and bottle service. It would have been simpler if that were true. A little later, my host leaned toward me between parties. "Hey boss," she murmured. "Is your sister coming tonight? She called the other day asking about Christmas, said she might swing by, but she never confirmed." The staff was wondering. I kept my eyes on the room as I answered. "If she comes in, we treat her like any other guest. No exceptions." Saying it out loud solidified something inside me. I wasn't just setting policy for them, I was drawing a line for myself. Family or not, the rules were the rules. By 7, the place was humming. The birthday family had arrived, the law firm's party was already loud enough to send echoes through the ceiling, and the engaged couple sat holding hands, glowing under the candlelight. I was at the entrance adjusting a crooked sprig of garland when the front door opened and a gust of cold air hit the foyer. 6 women stepped inside on a cloud of perfume and laughter, heels tapping against the wood. At the front of the group, in a coat that looked more like a costume than something meant for warmth, was a face I knew better than my own and hadn't really seen in months. Sloane walked in like the place belonged to her eyes, already sweeping the room, one hand lifting to fix her hair as if a camera might be watching. Our eyes met for half a second. Then she slid her gaze past me, turned to her friends and said loudly, "This is my brother's spot. We don't have to worry about anything tonight." That was the last moment the evening still had a chance to go differently. I stepped toward them like I would toward any new party, smile in place, body on autopilot. Sloane rested her hand on one of her friend's shoulders and angled her body away from me, voice pitched just high enough for everyone nearby to hear. "We need a VIP table for 6, she said. "We didn't bother with a reservation, but I'm sure you get it." There wasn't even a flicker of recognition in her tone, nothing that said, "That's my brother." It was like she'd carved that part out of the scene to keep her image intact. One friend nodded, looking me up and down. "Yeah, this is Sloane's brother's place," she added. "We don't need to book ahead." Another glanced at my name tag and smirked. "Why's your brother got you stuck at the door?" she asked. "Shouldn't you at least be a manager or something?" I kept my voice steady. "We're fully reserved tonight," I said. "All VIP tables are being held for guests who booked in advance. I'm afraid we can't take walk-ins in that section." A third friend, smaller than the rest but with the sharpest tongue, tilted her head. "How long have you been working here?" she asked. "Don't you ever feel like your life is kind of pointless, being 30 and still standing at the door?" The words hit harder than I wanted them to. For a second, the sound around us blurred, and all I could see were images stacked on top of each other: the bank conference room where I signed away the next decade of my life, the empty dining room after the remodel, me on my knees scrubbing sauce off the floor at midnight. I swallowed it down and looked at Sloane, waiting for her to cut in to say enough. She gave me a tight little smile. "They're just joking," she said. "Don't be so serious." When I told them again that the VIP section was off limits without a reservation, her expression shifted. The charm drained out, replaced by something colder, sharper. "Do you know who you're turning down?" she asked. "My brother owns this place. One phone call and you're gone. I'm trying to help you out here." The girls giggled. One of them raised her phone and snapped a picture of me without asking. "We'll send this to him," she said. "He'll love to see how his staff talks to family." None of them had any idea that the person they were threatening to report me to was standing right in front of them. Strangely, that wasn't what hurt the most. What burned was that it was my sister saying those words, my sister who had stood behind this bar as a teenager, who knew exactly what it cost to keep the doors open and still chose to treat the person in front of her like he was disposable. Inside, something shifted. I realized that if I backed down now, if I laughed it off and magically produced the best table in the house, I'd be teaching her that our last name was a key she could use anywhere in this building any way she wanted. If I held the line, there was a chance, maybe the only chance, that she'd finally feel the weight of her choices. In the space of a few heartbeats, 3 paths opened in my head. I could tell the truth right there, call her out in front of her friends, watch the whole performance collapse. I could stick to the rulebook and seat them at a regular table if one opened, pretending this was just another awkward interaction. Or I could do something else. I could give them exactly the experience they were demanding and let the reality of it land where it needed to. I chose the last option. My voice softened. I let my shoulders drop as if I'd finally been worn down. "You know what I said, you're right. It'll be easier if I just find you a table. Please follow me." Relief rolled through the group. One girl muttered, "See, you just have to push a little." Sloane adjusted her hair, slipped her arm through a friend's, and walked after me with the confident stride of someone who believed threats and family connections always worked in her favor. I led them through the dining room, up the small set of steps, into the VIP section, to the very table I'd been holding all night. The best view, the softest chairs, the heaviest menus, no prices, only descriptions. Above and around us, the cameras and mics watched like unblinking eyes, recording every word. I pulled out chairs, handed out menus, let them soak in the room they thought they were entitled to. As I stepped back, I felt that line inside me harden into something clear and unshakable. From this point on, I wasn't just the owner trying to keep a guest happy. I was an older brother who had finally decided he wasn't going to give away his work, his staff's dignity, or his own self-respect for free. That was the moment I started giving them exactly what they believed they deserved, no more and no less. I kept that table for myself. I pulled out the chairs, set the VIP menus down, filled their water. Sloane sank into her seat like she owned the room. "My brother always keeps a table like this open for me," she told her friends. "He knows I bring him attention." She said it while I stood right there as if I were part of the wallpaper. To make up for the mix-up at the door, I said I'll send over 3 rounds of our signature cocktails on the house. They cheered. Phones came out. Sloane went live. "Influencer perks," she laughed. "This is how family treats you when they own a place." On the surface, it was generous. Underneath, it set the tone I needed. This feels free, easy, safe. Their menus had no prices. Once you stop thinking about numbers, you stop seeing limits. When I came back, one girl tapped the page. "How much is the truffle pasta?" she asked. Sloane waved a hand. "Don't worry about prices. We're family." The mic above them caught every word. I didn't explain that most dishes on that page started high and climbed. I just wrote down what they pointed at: oysters, caviar, white truffle, risotto, a Wagyu tomahawk for the table. Each choice laid more money quietly on the bill. The cocktails hit hard on almost empty stomachs. When I checked on them again, their voices had gone loose. One friend looked me over, then turned to Sloane. "Your brother's cute," she said, "but it's kinda sad he's still just serving." Sloane shrugged. "He'd be a good manager," she answered. "I guess he's not there yet." They laughed. None of them knew the man they were dismissing had signed the loan that kept the lights on, or that every line was being recorded. I thought of the kid version of my sister, the one who used to charm regulars and hug cooks. Somewhere along the way, being treated special had stopped feeling like a gift and started feeling like a rule. Now she was using my staff and my business as props. Later, one of my servers pulled me aside. Those girls upstairs are telling people they can just show up and take VIP whenever they want, she whispered. They keep saying they know the owner. Something locked into place. Thanks, I told her. I'll handle it. This wasn't about tonight anymore. They were already rehearsing a pattern. Back at the table, appetizers were dragging behind a line of holiday orders. I told them the kitchen was backed up and asked if they wanted another round while they waited. "2," Sloan said. I put it in and watched the total climb. To them it was more fun, more proof they mattered. To me it was a ledger of every choice they'd made. As I cleared a few empty glasses, I heard Sloan again. "This is probably all he'll ever do," she said. "Carry plates until Mom and Dad finally hand everything over." I stopped with my back to them just long enough to feel it land. Then I walked back to the terminal and printed their check. I'd spent years softening reality for her. That ended tonight. By the time dessert was finished, the VIP table was a blur of empty glasses and loud voices. In the small office off the bar, I pulled up their ticket. The number popped up $40.47. I let out a slow breath, hit print, and headed back upstairs. I set the check holder in front of Sloan. "Whenever you're ready," I said. She opened it, still smiling, then froze. "No way," she said. "This is wrong. Print the real one." I picked it up, nodded. "I'll double check." Behind her, someone snickered about me getting in trouble. In the office, I printed the exact same bill. Same dishes, same drinks, 3 rounds, clearly marked as complimentary. I brought it back. This time, all 6 leaned in. Phones came out, calculators opened. They added up oysters, steak cocktails, dessert. Every time they checked, the total stayed the same. One girl looked at me. "You're overcharging us because you think we're rich," she said. "You trapped us up here." "Everything here is what you ordered," I said. "If you'd like, I can call the police and we can go through it with them." The table went quiet. No one wanted that kind of audience. Sloan shoved her chair back. "Give me a minute," she muttered, heading for the restroom with her phone. A few minutes later, she came back, makeup fixed, eyes too bright. She held her screen toward me. A message thread with a contact labeled Thane Merrick. Owner showed texts saying she wouldn't have to pay. "My brother told me it was covered," she said. "You see, he said it's on him." I glanced at the number under that name. It wasn't mine. "If that's true," I said, "we can call him. If he approves a discount, I'll do it." She yanked the phone back and raised her voice. "You don't get to touch my phone," she snapped. "You're harassing me. Everyone can see it." Heads turned. My staff hung back, waiting. "You don't need to call him," I said. "You're already talking to him." For a moment, no one moved. Then one friend looked from the contact name to my badge. Sloan stared at me. "You're not the owner," she said. "You're just working the floor." "I am," I answered. "I took the loan. I rebuilt this place. Our parents sold to me so they could retire. And I'm the person you threatened to get fired." Her face twisted. "You set me up," she said. "You wanted this." "What I wanted," I said, "was for you to treat this place and the people in it with respect. You demanded VIP. I gave you VIP. Your card and ID at the start. We hold those for everyone up here so people don't walk out. The cameras and microphones," I nodded toward the ceiling. "They're here because of a bad incident years ago. Everything tonight is recorded. If you honestly think you're being cheated, we can call the police and show them." The girls who had been loudest now stared at the table. Sloan looked down at the check again. Her hand shook as she picked up the pen and signed. Her friends dug through their bags, pushing what cash they had toward her, promising to pay her back later. It barely dented the total. The rest went on her card. When I picked up the signed slip, her mascara had started to run. For a second, I saw the kid in an oversized apron, feet swinging off a prep counter. I didn't feel proud. I felt tired that it had taken a $4,000 bill to draw a line. I slipped the receipt into my pocket and walked back toward the office, thinking the worst of the night was over. I had no idea that 2 days later my father would walk through the front door and demand to know what I'd done to his daughter. For 2 days after that night, the restaurant went back to its usual rhythm, but I didn't. Sloan went completely silent. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive posts about me. You'd think that would feel like relief. Instead, it sat on my chest like someone had turned the volume down on a song halfway through. Business was good, holiday bookings, stacked staff, moving in a tight flow, and still every time my phone buzzed, I half expected her name. It never appeared. On the second evening, just after the first seating started, my host came to the kitchen door, eyes a little too wide. "There's a man out front asking for you," she said. "He says he's your dad." I stepped into the hallway and saw him before he saw me. My father, Mark Merrick, was standing in the middle of the lobby in his old leather jacket, face flushed, jaw clenched. The dining room went quieter around him in that way rooms do when they sense a storm. "Thane," he shouted. "What did you do to your sister?" Heads turned. A server froze with a tray of drinks in his hands. I walked forward, put a hand on my dad's arm, and murmured, "Not out here. Come with me." I led him down the hall to my office. Sloane was already inside, standing near the wall, arms wrapped around herself. Her eyes were red makeup smudged, but she didn't look at me. She stayed half behind our father, like she was 12 again and I'd broken her favorite toy. Dad didn't sit. He slammed his palm on my desk. "She tells me you humiliated her in front of her friends," he said. "That you made up some ridiculous bill, held her ID, and refused to honor the fact that she's family. Is that true?" According to Sloane, I'd yelled at her, insulted her in front of the whole restaurant, forced her to pay for things she didn't order, and stolen her card and license to keep her from leaving. She made it sound like I'd set a trap for her, like I'd been waiting years to drag her down. I felt something hot rise in my throat, but my voice stayed level. "That's not what happened," I said. "She's leaving things out." "Don't lie to me," my father snapped. "I did not raise you to treat your sister like a stranger off the street. You also didn't raise me to let anyone walk over my staff," I answered, "even if that person shares our last name." He drew breath to argue again, and I realized words alone weren't going to move him. So I turned to the computer on my desk, clicked into the security system, and pulled up the VIP feed from that night. The camera over the table filled the screen. "Sit," I said quietly. "Both of you." They did. I hit play. We watched the entire evening in compressed form. Sloane at the door threatening to get me fired, her friends laughing about my job, her telling them not to worry about prices because we're family, their comments about my life being meaningless, every order, every drink, every insult. You could hear the ice in the glasses, the scrape of chairs, the exact tone in her voice when she told them I would always give her what she wanted. My father stared at the screen, his face draining of color. The room felt smaller with every minute that passed. When the video finally showed me dropping the check and her reaction to the total, I paused it and turned the monitor toward them. There was a long silence. Then he looked at Sloane. "You told me he screamed at you," he said. "You told me he made it all up." She swallowed hard. "I just wanted to be treated the way I used to be," she whispered. "Like before. When this was all of ours. Before," my father said slowly, "your mother and I were still running things. We comped meals because we chose to not because you demanded it. Now your brother is carrying this place on his back. You don't get to shame him for the way he does it. You don't get to shame anyone who works here." Something in me cracked. I'd been holding a lot of words back for a long time. "I'm not angry that she got drunk and ordered steak," I said. "I'm angry that I work 16-hour days to keep this building standing and my own sister looks at me and sees a failure because I still serve tables. I'm angry that the job that put food in our mouths somehow became a joke to her." My father sat down then like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. He rubbed his face with both hands, breathed out, and when he spoke again, his voice was softer. "You're right," he said to me. Then he turned back to Sloane. "You owe your brother more than money." He stood, touched her shoulder. "We're going home," he told her. "You need time to think about what you did." Then he looked at me. "I'm sorry I came in here ready to tear your head off before I heard you out." They moved toward the door. Right before he opened it, Sloane glanced back at me. Her eyes held anger, shame, and something like confusion all tangled together. Then the door closed behind them, and the office went quiet. My whole body went loose all at once as if someone had cut the strings. I sank into my chair and stared at the dark monitor. For the first time in my life, I had made my sister face the full consequences of her behavior, and for the first time I didn't feel guilty for doing it. I knew we weren't done, but the idea that she was untouchable inside these walls had finally died. After they left, the restaurant felt different, like the air pressure had changed. Service kept moving, dishes kept going out, but I was moving on autopilot. When the last guest walked out and the deadbolt slid into place, I went back to my office, shut the door, and just sat there under the harsh fluorescent light. My hands were still shaking a little. My shoulders ached. In my head, I replayed everything my father had said, everything I had said, all the looks that passed between us. One question kept circling: had I drawn a necessary line, or had I broken something in my family that could never be fixed? A soft knock came at the door. One of my servers poked her head in. "Hey," she said, "you okay?" I nodded, but she stepped inside anyway. "Everyone saw your dad come in," she went on. "We heard some of it. I just wanted to say, it meant a lot to us that you didn't back down. It makes a difference knowing you'd protect us even from your own family." Later in the kitchen, I caught snatches of conversation. "I've never seen him that mad," one line cook said. "Good for him," another replied. "If my sister talked about my job like that, I'd lose it." I realized they weren't gossiping. They were taking stock. Me refusing to bend wasn't cruelty to them. It was proof that the rules applied the same way up and down. Out in the dining room, an older regular waved me over as he shrugged on his coat. He'd known my grandfather. "You handled yourself tonight," he said. "Your granddad would have been proud you didn't let anyone belittle the people who keep this place running." He paused, then added quietly, "Just make sure you don't win so hard you lose your sister." After everyone left, I walked the restaurant alone. I passed the line where my grandfather once sweated through double shifts, the corner booth where kids still celebrated birthdays, and finally the VIP table where the whole mess with Sloan had unfolded. I looked up at the camera, that little black eye in the ceiling, and felt a strange mix of gratitude and unease. It had backed me up, but it had also captured every humiliation in high definition. Back in the office, I pulled up the digital copy of that $4,000 check. I printed another copy and held it between my fingers. It felt heavier than paper should, loaded with everything that night had contained: pride, entitlement, work, debt, love, anger. In a drawer, I found an old wooden frame that once held a picture of my grandfather. I slid the receipt inside and hung it on the empty patch of wall behind my chair. When I sat down, it was right in my line of sight. Not a trophy exactly, more like a reminder of what I'd tolerated for too long, of what I refused to allow again. I wish I could say I felt triumphant. I didn't. What I felt was closer to cutting a diseased branch off a tree, necessary, maybe even life-saving, but painful all the same. I had saved the trunk. I had no idea yet what would grow back in its place. My phone buzzed on the desk. A text from Sloan flashed on the screen. "I hate you." I stared at it, throat tight. A few seconds later, another message appeared. "I hate you because you're right." And then nothing. No follow-up, no long paragraph explaining, no apology. Just those two sentences sitting there between us like a bridge made of glass. I read them over and over until the words blurred. It hurt. But there was also a strange lightness in knowing she'd at least started to see the truth, even if she couldn't say it out loud to my face yet. I leaned back, eyes on the framed bill. Later, I would write the whole story out and throw it to the internet, asking strangers what they thought, asking if I'd gone too far. But alone in that office, with the hum of the refrigerator in the next room and the smell of tomato sauce still clinging to the walls, I didn't have an answer. Was I wrong to let my sister feel the full price of a night she thought she'd gotten for free? Or was this the only way she'd ever learn that family doesn't mean you get to walk all over the people who love you? I didn't decide that night. I let the question hang there between me and the receipt on the wall, knowing that whatever came next would depend on whether we could take this broken, ugly thing between us and turn it into something we could both live with.